What's up, everybody? Lots of upsets in the NFL Week 13. Let's take what we learned from those games and apply them to every game happening in Week 14. Of course, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to keep getting this content week in, week out. Let's start with the Thursday game, as always, and we got the Cowboys after a nice win against the Chiefs on Thanksgiving Day, facing off against the Lions after a tough loss to the Packers again on Thanksgiving Day. You see the Lions here on the outside looking in. Actually, both the Lions and the Cowboys outside looking in this NFC playoff picture right here. Lions getting 3 points at home as customary to most home teams in the NFL these days. Both these teams are trending in different directions, and both of them really want to get in the playoffs, enough to be said. But you see a lot more talent on the defensive side of the football for the Lions. I think watching both teams as of late, it's hard to say who's got more offensive firepower at this point in the season. I think it's surprising to see the Cowboys where they're at with CeeDee Lamb playing great football, but also George Pickens really stepping it up offensively for that Cowboys offense. And on the Lions side of things, you're seeing obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown not really playing much that game. He's questionable to return this week, but I have a really strong feeling he'll be back. But even with him, it's hard to get both him and Jameson Williams getting going for this Lions offense. Tight ends in this offense are taking a step back after Ben Johnson's departure, but Jahmyr Gibbs has taken a huge, massive leap as the premier feature back in this Lions offense. Talking a lot about that side of the football. Obviously, these two teams' fortes is indicated by this line at 54.5. Again, I mentioned the strength of the Lions defense, especially in the pass rush, with Aiden Hutchinson there leading the way. But I don't want to discredit the Cowboys defense too much, because after they made that trade for Quinn Williams, D tackle, at the trade deadline, this defense, both the front seven and the secondary, seem to take a second life. It's certainly a step up the past few weeks. Don't know if that's a product of the teams they've been playing, just some momentum or true change. But if you're looking at the season as a whole, this Cowboys defense still ranks bottom 5 in the league defensively. And using the same metric, I have the Lions at top 4 actually in terms of PFF defensive grade. So very stark contrast between these defenses. I think the Lions again are the better team here, and I'm going to take them with, I'd say, the biggest playmaker in the field being Jahmyr Gibbs here against, or again, a run defense with the Cowboys that has certainly improved, but still, again, on the season, a bottom 3 run defense. Taking the Lions to win this game and to cover and to put themselves in a better standing in this NFC playoff picture. Really high scoring game. I got the Lions 30, Cowboys 25. We're 13 weeks into the season, and last I checked, the Seahawks have the second, maybe even the third best odds to win the Super Bowl right now, behind the Rams, which is absolutely crazy and such a compliment to a Seattle team, to a Mike McDonald team that is taking such steps up with Sam Darnold coming in at QB this offseason. Obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba trailing the way for passing yards as a receiver in the NFL, but this defense being the super shining star of the wave they played these past few weeks especially. And it's not just one phase of the game, not just the pass rush, not the front seven and the run defense or the secondary, not just the inability or the ability to force turnovers, but everything that's going right for the Seattle defense is just clicking under defensive guru Mike McDonald, who would come from the Ravens when they had that tremendous defensive season. Taking on the Falcons here, who just look completely abysmal at 4-8 this year. Michael Penix Jr. again out for the season. At quarterback, not getting much production offensively, outside of anyone maybe named Bijan Robinson, especially when Drake London's been out with injury. But even with Drake London, with the backup quarterback who's pretty immobile at his age against a really stout defense that's been generating some great pass rush, especially as their rookie DN starts to heat up. Hard for me to see the Falcons competing this game. I think that's probably what odds makers are expecting. And so it seems like a bit of a trap game. But you're looking at the fourth best run defense in terms of PFF grade with Seattle, that really should be good at bottling up Bijan Robinson in this Falcons run game, where the Seahawks really fall off, and the defensive side is just tackling. Again, they make up for it with turnovers, but I could see Bijan Robinson and his elusiveness getting away from some of these Seahawks defenders here. It's hard for me to, point at to anything that the Falcons do well here that can make me justify them covering. But I do hate taking teams on the road when I think it's just the fair weather pick right now. And so, for no reason at all, I think I'm going to take the Falcons plus 7.5 here. As again, I think Seattle's looked great. Hard for me to understand how they don't cover the 7.5. But I said the same thing about the Rams last week on the road against an NFC South opponent when they were favored by more than a touchdown. I don't think Seattle will have the same outcome and same fate as the Rams here, so long as Darnold avoids throwing turnovers like he has most season long. But I'm going to take the Seahawks to win this one by less than 7.5. I'll give him just a straight up touchdown and take the Seahawks to win this game 24-17. Ravens, after a surprising upset loss to round out our trio of Thanksgiving losses here early, 5.5-point favorites against the Steelers at home here in a game that's even more must win than it was the week before. You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Ravens both sitting at 6-6. Bengals only 2 games behind here, so this will be a big win for either team. Obviously, the Ravens being favored here, but they did not look good against that game against the Bengals, with Joe Burrow coming back with a vengeance, passing the ball all over him, spreading the ball out, but also getting some effectiveness from Chase Brown there. But this isn't about the Bengals, it's about the Ravens. And what really shocks me most this season as compared to last is the ability or lack thereof to run the football, not just with Derrick Henry, but obviously a big storyline this season is how little Lamar Jackson has ran it himself, picking up yards with his dual threat capabilities. That's what really concerns me about the Ravens as a team, as a playoff contender, or at least hopeful. But what doesn't concern me is this game against the Steelers, who have had very minimal offense all season long, with or without Aaron Rodgers. The one thing that goes well for this team is their defense when they come to play. They usually do against the Ravens, just given this team's bitter rivalry. And given that, I think they might be able to limit the Ravens' offense again, which is really lacking in the run game, and never has had too much to talk about in the pass game when that running game isn't developing. So much of that passing game being predicated off the play action and sucking that front seven and linebackers up from the defense, where I think this game is going to be a low-scoring one, typical Steelers-Ravens grind. But I do like the Ravens with the amount of playmakers they have, most notably the more recent MVP at quarterback with Lamar Jackson. But I do think it's going to be tighter than most people think, just given the bitter rivalry of these two teams and the sluggish nature of this Ravens offense. As I guess not more sluggish than the Steelers, but it is more sluggish than we're used to seeing from a Ravens team at this point in the season. I'm going to take the Ravens to win this game 20-17. This has got to be the lowest over-under total that I've seen from two teams. I guess you could argue starting quarterbacks, but certainly two rookie quarterbacks here with Shedeur Sanders at quarterback facing the number 1 pick, Cam Ward of the Titans. Titans, after another abysmal showing at 1-11, still haven't cracked 200 total points through 12 games of football in the NFL. Find themselves as 4.5-point underdogs on the road against the Browns. And while both offenses have been anemic this year, what is the shining star is this Browns defense that rivals that of the Texans and other great defense around this league, and that's the huge difference maker here. If you didn't like the Titans to score too many points against the likes of the Jaguars and the rest of the teams they played this year, especially as of recently, then they're going to have a really hard time putting up points against this Browns team, especially trying to stop Myles Garrett, who's I think he's got 19 sacks through this point of the season. It's just absolutely wild. But if you're looking at the scoreboard for these Titans, they put up 3 points as of late against the Jags. They put up actually did a decent performance. I think 17 offensive points against the Seahawks, 13 against the Texans, 20 the high water mark against the Chargers, and 14 against the Colts. I don't think they surpass any of those thresholds here. Maybe the 3-point threshold against the Browns. At least for the Browns, they got some Harold Fannin Jr., rookie tight end, and rookie running back Quinshon Judkins that can make some plays. Without a real spark from maybe the secondary or a crazy play where these guys can get a 6-yard touchdown, I don't see much happening for the Titans here. I do think the under hits in this one. They usually do, anecdotally, when I see totals this low. But I'm still going to take the Browns to win this one. I think you're going to see a score from their defense, potentially. I think it's a better bet in this game than most. And I think you see just a lot of ground and pound and really leaning on that defense to get after Cam Wharton, who's already has the most sacks in the league and potentially breaking Caleb Williams' record from a few seasons ago, or from last season, I'm sorry. I think you're going to see Myles Garrett 20-plus sacks through this game, and potentially could break the sack record this game with how the Titans have blocked and protected their quarterback. I'm going to take the Browns to win this one 17-6 with the cover and the under. Real important game for the divisional standings here in the AFC South, with the Jaguars at home surrendering 1.5 points to the Colts, who are no longer the division leaders after their loss to the Texans on Sunday. This is going to be a pretty great game, I would hope to think, but usually in tight games like these, I end up taking the under, as the defenses are the shining stars and adjustments are more easily made on that side of the football. But make no doubt about it, the offenses are the best show in town for both these teams. You're not seeing a lot of Brian Thomas Jr. for the Jaguars, but you are seeing Bretton Strange coming back from injury, getting a touchdown last game. Jacoby Myers acquired from trade, getting a touchdown that last game. Parker Washington stepping up in the offense. Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. being a reputable threat at wide receiver, but kind of being an ancillary character within that passing game. And then Travis Etienne really getting going in the run game, all orchestrated by the man pictured here, Trevor Lawrence. That's what is the best ticket in town in Jacksonville. And then for Indianapolis, even more playmakers on that side of football. MVP candidate Jonathan Taylor at running back, one of the best rookies not at the quarterback position, and Tyler Warren at tight end, and then a slew of cast of characters at wide receiver like Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, really making Daniel Jones' life easy when healthy, which is a little bit different than lately, as he's nursing a leg injury that isn't stopping him from getting on the playing field, but certainly hampering his dual threat ability, which he's not necessarily known for, but he's got sneaky speed at times, and his legs have certainly helped him, but less able to rely on that. Defensively, between these two teams, Sauce Gardner leaving the game last week too is going to take a big hit to this Colts defense that is, as the season goes, a bottom 10 defense in the league. Jaguars, who really got off a hot start of the season defensively, forcing turnovers left and right, have certainly cooled down, but find themselves still on the season using the same metric as a top 10 defense. That's the big difference here. I'm going to have to give the nod to the Colts here after coming off a loss. I think they're going to have a fire lit on their belly here. Again, coming off the loss, maybe taking the Jags. I don't think they're looking past this game. I think they understand the importance. But I think when this Colts offense is firing on all cylinders, there's few better in the league. The Jags are going to have to conjure up some of that early season magic and force some turnovers if they're going to want to win this game. That's going to be the big difference, as whether or not Daniel Jones can hold on the football. I'm going to say that he does this game. I'm going to say that the Colts win in a real tight one. Colts 27. I said I wouldn't take the over, but I'm going to with these offenses. Colts 27, Jags 26. Another 1.5 point spread with the road team being the favorite. You got the Commanders after their tough loss and well-played game against a stout Broncos defense on Monday night against the Vikings that just really are struggling here with their tough loss against Seattle with their backup quarterback. I don't know the news on J.J. McCarthy, but I'm going to guess based on this line, I'm going to look it up in the background, that he's going to be playing this game. I just can't imagine throwing out the backup quarterback with the offensive performance that the Vikings had, that they won't be playing J.J. If healthy. Yeah, he's just got a clear concussion protocol, I have no doubt, on my mind. And as of right now, Coach McConnell said that J.J. McCarthy will be playing this game. I think if he does, I'm actually going to take the Vikings to win this one here. I do like the way that the Commanders played the game against the Broncos, and I actually think it's more of an indictment on the Broncos than it is a nod to the Commanders. But I just still don't see a ton coming from this Commanders offense, especially in the run game. Terry McLaurin in the passing game at receiver, who had a tremendous, outstanding year last year, just isn't showing up quite like I think people expect him to this year. And on the Vikings side of the football, I really respect what they're doing defensively. I've always liked their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, and what he's been able to do with the personnel there. I think why I'm taking the Vikings at home in this kind of coin flip game is more the playmakers they have on offense, namely Justin Jefferson, who is by far the most talented player on the field in this game. And if J.J. McCarthy can just play slightly better than abysmal football, I like the Vikings to win this one with the talent that they have in offense and what should be a low-scoring game. It's going to come out to which team can make a big play, and I think that's going to be the Vikings. Again, the talent either between him, Jordan Addison is no stranger to big plays, or even tight end like T.J. Hawkinson. Or even Naylor at wide receiver. I'm going to take a guy in the Vikings to make a big play here and for them to win this game and win this one 20-17. Jets, after, I believe, I should catch up with my scores. Jets, after the game that I called them winning against the Vikings, just by virtue of the Jets being due, are now 2.5-point favorites. Underdogs at home against the Dolphins. I don't think the Jets would be so lucky this time, and I think they got a lot of help from their special teams and defense, which is what they had to do to win that game. I don't think 27 points is in the cards week in and week out from this Jets team, which doesn't get a lot on the ground, even with star Breece Hall. Certainly does not get a lot in the pass game, and without help from their other phases of the football team, it's hard for them to crack 20 points on offense. The Dolphins here don't seem to have too big of an issue scoring, but where they do kind of fall off is their defensive side of the football. I don't think that matters so much this week against the Jets, again, with their anemic offense, but the Dolphins put up 21 points against what I think is a defense for the Saints that is a little bit better than most people give them credit for. You're still seeing Devon Achane make big plays, being the real playmaker within that offense. I don't like the way Tua looks. He certainly is still no stranger to forcing turnovers, but you see Darren Waller on that offense step up a little bit more, as they greatly need some playmakers wherever they can find them. Hard for me to say. This is also a team that had big help from their defense against the Saints. Hard for me to say that I like the Dolphins here, but I'm going to take them just because it's a play against the Jets in that offense. They just continue to not be able to take advantage of the short field their defense gives them. Luckily, the Falcons gave them every chance to win that football game. I don't think they will be so lucky 2 games in a row, and I'm going to take the Dolphins to win this one in a tight, close game. I'll take somehow the Jets to cover this one. I do think at home plus 2.5 is probably the right move, just given that the Dolphins have also had their struggles offensively. But still take the Dolphins to win this game, winning this one 19-17. Baker Mayfield, with his hurt shoulder and all, didn't have too big of an issue beating the Cardinals 20-17 at home this week. As I mentioned, the Saints lost 21-17 on the road against the Dolphins. I think I would have liked to see the Buccaneers kind of trail away from the Cardinals more than they did, only beating them by 3 points. But I think you saw some nice signs of life for that Bucs offense, most notably Bucky Irving coming back and scoring a touchdown after a long hiatus there with nursing a couple of injuries. I think getting him back is going to be a huge catalyst for this offense against the Saints. Much like the Titans, this Saints team, I think, is the only other team in the NFL that has not cracked 200 points throughout their 12 games. And yeah, they're in some other poor company with the Raiders and the Browns there. But one of the few teams that haven't cracked 200 points in 12 games, I think that's going to be really tough to compete against the Bucs. And I think you're going to see a little bit more of an offensive output, again, with the presence of Bucky Irving. I'm going to like the Bucs and Bucky Irving to build their momentum, especially as they are hanging on by a thread to this divisional lead against the Panthers. I think they still play the Panthers twice, so every game, whether it's in the division or not, is going to be crucial for these guys. They got to get this win if they're going to want to try to make the playoffs and win this division, especially given how difficult and competitive this NFC wildcard picture is. I'm taking the Bucs to win this game and to cover, beating the Saints here 25-14. Another home team here favored by a touchdown plus with the Bills taking on the Bengals. Bengals coming off a long week and a nice win in Joe Burrow's return. Bills having a great second half with Josh Allen and James Cook in their offense and beating down the Steelers after a slow start there. I really like the Bills in this matchup, mainly because of the run game difference that these guys have. I mean, James Cook has been unbelievable rushing the football all year long behind this great offensive line for the Bills. Josh Allen has too, but it namely has been the James Cook show, and he's going up against one of the worst run defenses of football with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I expect that to be the game within the game where the Bills have a chance to really run away and dominate this game. However, I don't think you're able to quantify the impact that a motivated, determined Joe Burrow has at quarterback, given his connection with his wide receivers and Jamar Chase. And because of that fact alone, having Joe Burrow only back 2 games in this division, I think you're going to see them compete. I have a hard time seeing them win this football game. Obviously, this -8 would indicate that it's a bit lopsided here. But the Bills at 8-4, they're probably not going to win this division anymore, but they're looking to secure this wild card spot. And again, in a competitive AFC wild card picture where they can't afford to lose too many games, especially ones where they're favored by 8 points. I think you're going to see a high-scoring affair. I think you're going to see a ton of Joey B and Jamar Chase, but I do think the Bills come up victorious in this game when they need to be, leaning on that run game and probably using their pass rush and Joey Bosa and using their top 7 ranked pass rush to go against this really poor pass blocking offensive line. When it comes down to it late, I'm going to take the Bills to win this game 31-28, Buffalo. Divisional matchup here with the Broncos sitting at 10-2 right now, sitting really pretty, going up against their divisional opponents, the Raiders, getting 7.5 points. Still low-scoring game, so I don't think much of this Denver team offensively. I've been saying that week in and week out. They continue to win close games, which is great for them, but they really leave me unimpressed with offensively with what they're able to do in both the running game and the passing game. Although Bo Nix has proven that he obviously knows how to win football games, which at the end of the day is the most important thing in the NFL. Taking out a Raiders team that's really struggling offensively, really has nothing to show for themselves outside of Brock Bowers, who keeps making incredible catch after incredible catch week in and week out. Ashton Jonty doing decent stuff with both those guys and these young players who have a bright future in Las Vegas. Can't do enough to lift this Raiders team out of the doldrums of the NFL, especially when Geno Smith has a really poor time passing the football at anyone else outside of those 2 guys I just named and has a penchant to commit turnovers. It's going to be tough sledding against this Broncos team that is one of the most stout defensive units in football and continues to show that week in and week out. I feel like the easy pick here really is the Broncos, and I hate taking teams with double-digit spreads on the road against divisional opponents. So I'm going to follow my gut and take the Raiders plus 7.5 here, but I have a really hard time believing the Raiders can win this game, really just given their lack of prowess all season long. But again, I don't buy into this Broncos team being as good as a 10-2 record indicates, mainly because that offense really doesn't move the needle for me. This Broncos team, in terms of points for, is just around average in the league, and a lot of that is given just the multitude of opportunities that offense have had by virtue of their stout defense, giving them the football so often. So, they win games, and I think they win this one too, but they win them close, and I'd like the Raiders plus 7.5 here. Broncos winning this one 20-13. I don't think the Broncos need to score much against this Raiders team, but I think they allow just enough to let these guys cover. What I think is America's game of the week, and rightfully so, you got the number 1 seed in the NFC Conference, Chicago Bears, laying 6.5 points on the road against the Packers, who are hot on their tail for this divisional title. Can't say I'm surprised by the 6.5 points favorite for the Packers at home in Lambeau, where they, with or without Rodgers, still own the Chicago Bears, although the tide seems to be turning a little bit, but I don't think it'll be fully overturned this week. I like the Packers to win this game, and what I loved out of them against the Lions is Jordan Love spreading the ball out to his multitude of wide receivers. I think Dontavian Wicks being the biggest beneficiary this past week, but it just goes to show that they can beat you so many ways with either him or Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson. Josh Jacobs back there looking pretty solid after coming off a hiatus with his injury. I just like the completeness of this team. And when the Packers are on, they play down their competition a lot, but when the Packers are on, this team is one of the best in the NFL. And they showed you that against the Lions. Them, like the Bears, have a long week to prepare this game, and the big difference between these two teams is the defense, as it usually is here, and what I like to call out close games. Packers having a top 6 defensive unit here, really bolstered by their pass rush, obviously Micah Parsons, but that coverage unit, even after getting rid of Jair Alexander this season, is still looking like one of the best in the NFL. I think that's the big difference in this game. Now, Caleb Williams, to his credit, has been one of the most elusive quarterbacks in a non-traditional way. Obviously you think about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes too, but Caleb Williams, after surrendering 68 sacks last season, has shown a real elusiveness in the pocket this year for the Bears. I don't think it's going to be enough as you got a guy like Micah Parsons chasing him down all game long. This Bears team really, as you saw against the Eagles, loves to run the football, and they don't really want Caleb Williams to win football games for them. They want to be able to win games with their run game and have Caleb assist in the wins. I think this is the type of game where you're going to need to have your quarterback win the football game, and I just don't think the Bears are that type of team yet. Jordan Love has been iffy when asked to win games, but he certainly is more talented right now than Caleb Williams. I'm confident in saying that, and he's got a better cast of characters, or at least a deeper cast of characters going up against a lenient Bears defense whose secondary grade is bottom 10 in the league. Again, I think the Packers here just overmatched the Bears in talent in a game that means so much. You haven't seen, outside of that Eagles game last week, the Bears win very many meaningful games this year. I like the Packers to take the division and this game here. And I'm going to take him to cover too, as I think you see Jordan Love put on a great masterclass of spreading the ball out to just about everyone wearing a Packers jersey on his offense and picking apart this Bears defense. I'm going to go Packers winning this game and covering, hitting the over in the process. Packers 28, Bears 21. Another great divisional matchup here, and maybe not great. We get the Rams coming off a loss on the road against the Cardinals team, also coming off a loss against the road. For the Cardinals, the really bright spot has been Trey McBride all season long. Clear-cut tight end 1 this year, if you look at just about any metric. Just putting up unstoppable performances week in and week out. But that's about the only shining star for the Cardinals. I guess you could highlight Marvin Harrison Jr. taking some steps up this year, but still not the receiver I think people thought he was going to be when he was drafted in the top 5 in the NFL just last year. For the Rams, uncharacteristic game for them. Losing, they put up 28 points. Matt Stafford doubled his interceptions for the season. That game going from 2 to 4. I'm not looking too much into that. I almost am, as a person owning a Rams future, I'm happy that they got the loss so they can continue to have that chip on their shoulder. They're sitting at 9-3 in the division. The Seahawks are right there behind them at 9-3. Every game is going to be meaningful for the Rams, as they're not just fighting for the number 1 seed anymore. They're fighting to have a home playoff game right now. So I think the Rams come back here to reality and put the Cardinals in their place, even on the road. There is nothing that isn't working for the Rams right now. As long as Matt Stafford is not turning the ball over, everything else is going well for this Rams team. I expect that trend to continue. I'd like the Rams to bounce back, win this game and cover when it's 31-20. This is a really intriguing game with massive playoff implications. Chiefs at 6-6, taking on the Texans sitting at 7-5, still finding themselves as 3.5-point favorites. I keep falling into the trap of taking the Chiefs because they have to win in order to make the playoffs, and I just refuse to believe that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid will miss the playoffs. But that's almost the territory that we're in, and they're facing a red-hot Texans team who just took over the Colts, the team that the Chiefs barely outlasted in overtime the week before last. I think if you're talking about just the last 2 games for the Chiefs against the Cowboys, who they lost, and the Colts, in which they won, I think the Texans are much more akin to the Colts in a game that they're going to play you really strong defensively and going to be limited offensively with the really solid defensive unit that the Chiefs were able to put up. Cowboys the opposite. They have a string cheese defense, at least they have been. And if you look at the season as a whole, and their offense is going to be putting up points no matter what defensive front is put in front of them. So that for that reason, again, I talked about the Texans being more akin to the Colts. I think I like the Chiefs to win this game in a true dire situation, make or break, last-ditch effort for the playoffs right here, game at home. To cover 3.5, I think it's getting a little greedy against a Texans defense that's this fantastic. But it's hard for me to get out of this trap of taking the Chiefs in must-win games. So I'm going to keep going with that. But I just like the Colts, where the Chiefs were favored by 3.5 points at home. I'm going to take the underdog here, plus 3.5. Chiefs to win this game by a field goal at home in a game they need to win if they even want to have a chance of making the playoffs this year. I'm taking the Chiefs to win this one 21-18. Eagles, after that aforementioned loss against the Bears on Black Friday football, take on the Chargers. Justin Herbert getting that left hand injury, I think getting left hand surgery. We'll see if he's playing. I'm sure he's playing this game given the spread, but we'll see how effective he is given that injury. They won, the Chargers did, against the Raiders, and kind of unimpressive win for me. They had that one breakaway rushing touchdown from Vidal, but other than that, they got what I would say is pretty bottled up against a really weak Raiders defense. Eagles here boasting a much different style of defense and competitiveness than what the Raiders boast. It's going to be a lot of running the football. At least they're going to try to, but Saquon Barkley on that offensive line has not been the same team that they had last year. You're actually seeing the passing game, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown starting to come alive, which is counterintuitive to what most teams in the NFL do and counterproductive to really how the Eagles win football games. Philadelphia passes the football because they have to, not because they want to. So when you see A.J. Brown getting 10 receptions and over 100 yards, it's usually because things aren't going well for the Philadelphia offense. It's going to be hard for me to say that Philly can get their run mojo going again, given how their offensive line and Saquon's been looking this year. But they're facing a Chargers team with just a below-average defense here, which they can take advantage of. And again, I think taking advantage of Herbert's injury and potential errant throws that come of that, even from his non-throwing hand, I guarantee that injury is going to make a difference in his accuracy and his mobility in general, willingness to take hits and play the game at large. I like the Eagles here, with both these teams sitting at 8-4. The Eagles to win this game and bounce back in the long week and lean on their defense. Should be a low-scoring game, as the spread indicates, and also pairing this newfound success in the pass game with A.J. Brown with a little bit of vintage Super Bowl Eagles getting the run game going again here. I think it's going to be close, but again, I'm going to take the Eagles to win this game and cover, taking this one 21-17. And that is it for this week. A lot of great games here in NFL Week 14. Appreciate all you guys sticking with me this far in the season, and cannot wait to talk to you again in NFL Week 15.